Hello and welcome to the Nutrition and Alternative Medicine Podcast. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host, and thank you for tuning in and downloading today's show. So today's show is going to be a little bit different than normal. I normally do Q&As on spirit, purpose, and energy, women, men, and relationships, and fit to love, but I don't do Q&As on nutrition and alternative medicine, and this show can actually go on all 4 channels currently. So I wanted to bring you a Q&A that I had that had to deal with nutrition and alternative medicine. And I'm going to answer this question since this show is going to appear on all 4 channels. This was from Jane, and Jane, as you know, I already answered number 2 of your 3 questions. So today I'm going to answer number 1 and 3. So Jane said that she's been a silent student of mine for about 2 years, and something inside of her urged her to contact me. She discovered my blog when she was trying to leave a 6-year relationship. She's been listening to all my podcasts. She's on the Manifestation Challenge. She bought the virtual ticket to the next big step. And so with all this information, now she's got a few very specific questions. So the first question on this list: I'm thinking of slowly transitioning to gluten and dairy-free. However, my love for certain food is delaying it a bit. If I reduced my intake of gluten and dairy significantly and only eat them once in a while, say once a month or so, would I still get the benefit? Or is it when I fully stop when I get the benefit? So this week, I have had an interesting reading, if you will, from a medical intuitive that I am working with currently, and it had to do with wheat. So while I am still gluten-free, and I am supportive of people being gluten-free and wanting to educate you on testing your own body, when it comes down to it, and Jane, if you have the next big step, I would invite you to go back to that program and learn how to muscle test yourself. We did it on day 1. Lisa Thomas led a session where we were learning how to muscle test ourselves in different ways. And by the way, the muscle testing segment is on every one of my virtual tickets, and all of them will be available at some point in the near future for you to purchase. Muscle testing is probably one of the best ways for us to test very specifically nutritional supplements, foods, and just anything, products that you can, so that you know that your body is going to receive it. So while there are so many scientific studies up to date, new books coming out all the time about grain and gluten, and again, it's not really the gluten that's the problem, it's the pesticides used in the farming of gluten. And so by default, we're all eating certain pesticides and poisons. I mean, think about pesticides for a second. They're poisons designed to kill animals and bugs. What do you think they do to us? So we have to just be careful to do things that are organic. So if gluten is something that you remove, and I would recommend that before you decide to remove it completely or go on a gluten-free lifestyle, that you do an elimination process, an elimination diet that removes it for a month, a solid 30 days out of your system completely, so that you can see and feel the effects of it. Now, for some of you, you're going to notice right away a decrease in bloating, probably water weight loss. You may notice skin irritations get better. You may notice your digestion improves. You may notice, I'm trying to think of other symptoms of gluten sensitivity, certain joint pains going away. But I would give it a full 30 days off of gluten, which means you're going to need to read labels. Read all of the labels. Soy sauce has gluten in it. What else does? There's just salad dressings. It's added to mixes like Bloody Mary mix. There are certain Bloody Mary mixes that add gluten because it makes it thicker. So read your labels and choose to go gluten-free for 30 full days. Let your body release any inflammation caused by gluten, and then add it back in and see what happens. And you're going to, oh, by the way, when you reduce gluten or eliminate it, most of the time, people also reduce their cravings. All of a sudden, you're not hungry anymore. There's also evidence of neurological and neurochemical enhancements and you feel happier and you don't feel as weighed down or depressed or anxiety ridden or stressed or foggy. So those are all symptoms of gluten and some dairy sensitivities. So I would recommend a 30-day gluten elimination. Now, if you want to go full on, do gluten and dairy off for 30 days and then add one thing in at a time. So I'd add gluten in and then just for like the first couple of days and see what happens. Do you start to feel cravings for sugar again? Do you get bloated quickly? Do you gain a few pounds quickly? And I'm not asking you to get on the scale. In fact, I would recommend don't get on the scale. Do this by feel. Do this by clothes. Do this by how you look in the mirror and how you feel your body. And then if you have, let's say, one thing of gluten, one meal with gluten in it, and then maybe 1 or 2 days later, you don't really feel any differently, continue being gluten-free for another couple of days and then add dairy in and see what happens. Now, I will also say that there's a difference between cow milk, goat milk, and sheep milk. And there's a difference between organic and not organic. So some people digest goat and sheep milk a lot easier than cow milk. Cow is the biggest of the animals, so their proteins are bigger and definitely not meant for us. But I'm going to still say none of it's meant for us. So I would really stay away from all of it. But add in your favorite dairy product, because really, whether you can digest sheep or goat is not really relevant if you don't even eat that kind of dairy. So I would add in your favorite dairy after a couple days of being gluten-free again and see how your body responds. So generally, it's an all or nothing principle. And I would say that if you're someone who is sensitive to one of these things, that of course you could do it. I mean, I do it maybe 5 times a year. 5 times a year I have gluten. Now, I'm a little bit on the dairy, I'm a little bit more lenient. I'd say I have dairy probably once every 4 to 6 weeks because of gluten-free pizza that I'm sharing with other people that aren't gluten or dairy free. Or there is actually a study about different kinds of cows, and I will bring that to you when I can find an expert to talk about it. Like A2 cows, like the cows in Europe, which is why Kerrygold butter is not as active on you. I mean, it's like the only dairy that I still consume because it's from an A2 cow, which actually doesn't have the same kind of pesticides, hormones, is raised differently, and therefore we are not as quote unquote sensitive or allergic to A2 cows. However, with that said, I don't want to start eating a whole bunch of cheese and milk and dairy. I don't want to add it back in because I'm still of the belief that it's not meant for us. It's meant for calves. It's not meant for humans. While I love it and I enjoy it and I look forward to having it next time I'm in Europe, I don't need to have it now because it does stimulate cravings for me, and I know that. So back to the question, I would not try to slowly transition to gluten and dairy free. I would just make a decision to do an elimination for 30 days as an experiment to see how it goes. And then you can make decisions after that about if you want to transition to gluten and dairy free or if you don't need to because none of it bothers you. This is where I'm bringing back in the idea of muscle testing. So if you have certain foods, you muscle test it. And when you watch the video, Jane, because I know you have it, there are several ways to do it. My favorite way that I get every time is standing up and doing the sway test. The fingers I never trust it, but the sway test, I trust. So just to give you a little bit of advice on which one works best for me and incorporating that with your food, and you can start that right away. But I still think there's value in doing a 30-day elimination diet. It's going to give you lots of information and also looking at your symptoms. And your symptoms will tell you what you're probably more sensitive to. Dairy often produces constipation, although for some people, diarrhea, gas. Dairy definitely has eczema and skin issues attached to it. Dairy for me is having congestion and mucus and coughing more and having to blow my nose more, for sure. So those are some of the symptoms. All right, so that was question number 1, which is why we're starting this show on nutrition and alternative medicine, because ultimately each body is different. All of you have different enzymes and produce different enzymes. Some of you have really good gut bacteria and some of you don't. And that's going to help or hurt how you break down your food. So while I'm not going to tell everybody to be gluten-free. I really don't see there's any benefit in eating it, quite honestly. There's nothing that we necessarily get from it that we need that we can't get from something else. And I'm a big fan of avoiding pesticides. And I would rather have my grain/carbs in the form of a glass of wine or a paleo pancake than I would in a piece of bread that may not be so special. However, occasionally, like I said, 5 times a year, I'll have there's a sourdough bread at a local restaurant that is amazing. Now, I've eaten there many times and not had the bread, but there are times where I specifically go there and give myself permission to have the bread. And you have to decide for yourself what feels good. You don't have to be all or nothing, but if we're looking at symptoms of your body, we're looking at how your body responds to certain foods, and you're looking for long-term healing cravings or weight loss. Now that's a different conversation. If we're just talking about health in general, learn to muscle test yourself, test your food, and see what works in your body. If you're trying to reduce cravings, any inflammatory foods help to produce cravings. And so we don't want to have that because it makes it harder for you not to emotionally eat or not to overeat when you are constantly fueling the fire of inflammation. Question number 2, I already answered on a different podcast, so I'm going to skip it. Question number 3. Okay, question number 3 is really more appropriate for women, men in relationships, spirit, purpose, and energy, and fit to love. However, I'm going to leave it here because the reason why you might be listening to Nutrition and Alternative Medicine is to get information on how to live differently. And while that is still very useful and I support it, it's where I started, it's where I'm always going to live in terms of finding alternative ways to treat and heal things that are more natural or not produced in a lab somewhere or go against sort of our natural healing processes. The fact is we all have relationships, and our emotions create our biology. And there's a book called Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. And as I'm saying that now, I probably need to reach out to him and have him on the show. It'll force me to read the book. Half of me doesn't want to read it because I get it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's that simple. You have a biology of belief. Your belief systems, your thought processes all influence your biology. Do we really need to know more about that? But I bought the book in order to argue with someone who was a skeptic about emotions and feelings and spirituality and things like that. And of course, I didn't read it because I don't want to argue with anybody. You can believe whatever you want to believe. I don't really care. It's your life. I want to influence those who are looking for better answers than the ones that they currently have because they don't like the results that your current belief system is providing for you. So question number 3 is more of a relationship. It's a relationship question. As soon as I came back from meditation, I was faced with big shifts in my life. The guy I had been dating decided to move back to Spain. My family's visit made me emotional and homesick. I'm having to move out of my house due to my roommate and have no place to go. I think the universe is clearing emotions and situations that no longer serve me. Even knowing this, I can't surrender to receive what is right for me to come. I'm stressed mostly about finding a place to live and can't seem to stop looking for ads day and night. I'm struggling to find the balance between surrendering and letting the universe bring what is right versus taking actions so you are led to the right opportunities. Jane, first of all, I apologize that I did not get to this question sooner because I'm imagining that you probably have found some kind of situation from the time that you wrote me this. But if you haven't, and even if you have, this is still going to be applicable. So first of all, your comment about I think the universe is clearing emotional situations that no longer serve me. I recently had a situation where we invited some like-minded friends and business owners to gather together in a mastermind. And there's several levels that I want to play with people on. And obviously there's a food and nutrition, alternative medicine point. There's a spiritual point. There's a business, entrepreneurial, creative, freedom, empowerment point. And I want to weave them all together. I mean, that's why I have my events. You've been part of the next big step. So I do everything from science to woo-woo. And that's how I like it. And so this group you think is a bunch of high-level, high-earning entrepreneurs, high motivation. And I'm not saying they're not that, but one thing led to another, and one by one, they were taking themselves out. Now, mind you, everybody agreed to this, situation at the beginning. It was stated exactly what was expected, from costs to participation to dates to locations. Everything was mapped out and everyone said yes. Well, as life has unfolded, people were taking themselves out. And it was frustrating for Doug more than me at first. I mean, I guess, no, I should say that it was frustrating for me. And then it became more frustrating to him and less frustrating to me because I saw the pattern in my life. I saw the pattern where I kind of come in and say, I want to do this and I'm going to try to gather like-minded people to do it, and I'm not going to claim or step into any kind of leadership role or ask to be compensated or any of that kind of stuff. And I've done it from literally my meetup groups, which my meetup groups turned into Releasing What Weighs You Down. And I could barely gather 5 or 10 people for free to come together to do dyads and certain practices that we had that I wanted to facilitate in my meetups. Yet now I have people who are paying over $1,000 to come play with me for a weekend, and they are getting the value, and they're doing it because they want the results. And they are showing up having known a little bit more about me and my process and my goals and what I want for you and why I'm putting this together. And so it forced me to realize that when I'm playing too small. So my meetup group was me playing too small. My meetup group was saying, who lives near me that is interested in these things? Now, I did meet some friends, but again, I didn't play big enough, and it showed in how sort of it all, after about a year, I gave up on trying. I gave up on trying to bring people together. People don't value something they don't have to stretch for. People don't value something they don't pay for. People don't value, or sometimes people don't hold themselves in an accountable way like someone else might. And so I learned that I did not play big enough. And when I stepped into Releasing What Weighs You Down, I got it. Now, I didn't get it completely. It took me till the next big step to get it. At the next big step, I got more and more clear about my need to continue to grow and expand and claim what it is that I need. So back to this mastermind program, one by one, as certain people started to drop out or question things, I thought it's happening again. It is happening again. I am not supposed to hold this in this kind of way. I'm supposed to expand into a bigger, more appropriate for me use of my time, because I have a lot to offer. I'm not saying that everyone else in the group doesn't have a lot to offer, but I think that I have such great positive momentum going on in my life right now. As you all know, I've been able to manifest a relationship of my dreams that I knew existed. I waited for, again, hoping it was going to come out of my husband, but it didn't. Had no expectation that it was going to be somebody new, but have literally manifested every single thing that I wanted, plus so much more. The universe delivered to me something more than I could have asked for. I wouldn't have asked for it because I didn't know if it was possible. And again, trying to get it out of my husband, he wasn't an entrepreneur, and I didn't think he ever would be. So I didn't ask for that because I was okay with him not being. But the fact that I am with somebody now who I can create with, and the sky is the limit, just opens up all kinds of possibilities. We are on such a roll right now of amazingness that I will share more as time goes on and things become more solidified and when we're ready to announce things that are going on. But what I'm going to say is I agree with you about the universe clearing situations that no longer serve you. But it doesn't mean it's not uncomfortable. And it doesn't mean you're not upset about it, because I wasn't really happy about this whole mastermind thing at first because I thought this is really frustrating. But after you experience the frustration and the sadness and the fear, I want you to remember and ask yourself, what is it that needs to happen next? How am I being pushed to grow? Because again, speaking of which, I'm going to announce here, because since this is on every channel, I am going to be interviewing Dr. Eben Alexander. For those of you that don't know who he is, he wrote Proof of Heaven. Beautiful book. He was on Super Soul Sunday several years ago. and I think it was 2015. I don't know. Anyway, it was a while ago that he was on, and I watched that episode. I've read the book. I've watched other things by him. He is a neurosurgeon, and it is the perfect law of attraction story. Now, he may not agree with me, and I may not be able to go down that path with him, but mark my words, his story is all about law of attraction, because he wanted something so badly that he didn't trust existed. And it's that dichotomy of the universe hears you. God hears you. It knows what you want, whether you're willing to admit it or not. And he manifested the perfect situation for him to experience what he wanted so badly. He wasn't willing to go there, so he created a situation. He manifested the perfect, nearly fatal situation for him to experience that which he wanted so badly, but yet had talked himself into believing wasn't possible. So I would ask yourself, everyone, if you're in a situation where you're uncomfortable, how did I attract this? What is it that I really, really want that I'm afraid to admit to because maybe I don't think I can have it? And how is this situation getting me there? How is this situation pushing me into and out of my comfort zone into the next phase of something I want, but I didn't know how to get, or I wasn't willing to ask for? I'm going to tell you one more story. I had a friend once who she was afraid to quit her job when she got engaged to her now husband. She wanted to quit her job. She wanted to focus on having babies right away. And she didn't want to quit her job because I asked her why. And she said, because I'm afraid of what his parents will say. And I thought to myself, well, I get it, but that's a lame reason to hate to stay in a job you hate. Like, why? But this was the choice. So what happened? She manifested an ectopic pregnancy, which put her in the hospital on bed rest, which forced her to quit. So by default, she manifested the perfect situation, because now she doesn't have to explain to anybody. She doesn't have to defend herself in any way, because she's on bed rest. And a doctor told her she had to quit her job because she had to be on bed rest. Now, my question to you is, that's okay. That's her path, and it may be yours. But look at how you've not you, just Jane, everybody. Look at how you've attracted certain things. Are you the person who says you want something, but you're unwilling to take the necessary steps to get it because you're too afraid of the consequences of other people in your life who are either going to yell at you or challenge you or guilt trip you or shame you? I get it. If that's you, when bad things happen to force your hand, just embrace it and accept it and know that it had to happen this way. Like you getting fired from a job. I can think of 3 people who really didn't want to be doing what they were doing, wanted to transition and then got fired and were upset that they got fired, which I understand. It's a blow to your ego, and all of a sudden you're forced into feeling unsafe and feeling fearful, but you asked for it because you didn't leave when you knew you should have, or not should have. I don't mean should in a guilt tripping way or in a whatever. Like when the day that you recognize, wow, I don't really want to be here, and people want to take their time with an exit strategy, and I get that, and that's fine. If it works out for you, cool. But for some of you, you're going to attract something that's going to shake you harder and faster than you would take action if it was just up to you. And it's in those times that I would say, be thankful. Yes, be frustrated, let it out, deal with it, process it, but also recognize your hand in it. Because we don't manifest, well, you're manifesting by default. Like, for instance, Doug and I knew what I was doing in terms of seeking out the relationship that I wanted. Mine was completely conscious. I was looking for a relationship, again, thinking that it was going to come out of my husband, completely believing 100% that I was going to get what I wanted in my current situation because it was a path of least resistance, or so I thought. So when I surrendered and said, okay, I'm going to let go because nothing's changing here, and I don't think it's going to unless we shake it up and go have different experiences and have some time to reflect and expand. And the second that I surrendered and let go is when I got what I wanted. Now, Doug, on the other hand, wasn't looking to leave his relationship. He was perfectly happy, so he thought. Yet I'm going to argue that subconsciously, every time there was an argument, every time there was a communication and miscommunication, every time there was feeling insecure or feeling jealous or feeling disconnected or feeling, I don't know, there's an umpteen number of different feelings that he had, that his subconscious mind was asking for something different. Not necessarily, again, in a different person, just different. And so path of least resistance wasn't for us to get it from our current partners. Path of least resistance is that we saw it exactly in each other. So the question is struggling to find the balance between surrendering and letting the universe bring what is right versus taking action so that you're led to the right opportunities. The only action that is worth taking, and I'm not saying don't go find an apartment or don't be looking, of course. But one of the actions that the only thing you can control is sort of where your frequency is, where you're vibrating. If you trust there is a reason, if you're having a hand in co-creating. The reason why I was able to manifest Doug so quickly was because within my marriage, within a unhappy situation for a while, and again, I wasn't an unhappy person because I didn't focus on it. I didn't focus on or make a story about all the things I didn't get or all the ways in which we weren't connecting on the ways I wanted to. I didn't focus on that. I told myself that it was going to happen. I believed that it was going to happen. So it's what you do with the thoughts you have and where you put your focus. So the action that you take first and foremost, yes, you surrender. You surrender to your intuition. You surrender to the things that are going on that you can't control. But when you get down to what you can control, you absolutely can control what you focus on. So I'm about ready to today. I'm recording this on Sunday, the 17th of February. And today was supposed to be a healing day for me, and it still might be. And in the last 24 hours, it has come to my attention, my realization about an area that I need to focus on to allow myself to grieve and to release and to move forward, is in the sadness that still remains about my relationship, about my soon-to-be ex-husband. And what got really clear to me yesterday wasn't about the situation, because I'm happy and I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. It's that I'm sad for him, and I have sadness and fear. And not because I don't trust or believe in his path or his process, I do. But unfortunately, the story I've been telling myself creates this fear and sadness. And I do need to grieve it. I do need to allow it to be and then release it. But then I also need to tell a different story. I need to journal every night about how he's doing well and happy and feeling centered and good and confident and loved and supported. That's the story I need to tell myself every day so that I can trust, because there's nothing else I can do about it. I've done everything I possibly can do on every level to save my marriage and to work on our relationship. And I love him and I always will. But for me to sit and think about all the negative things doesn't help anybody. So I need to make a new story. Whether it be true or not doesn't matter. I need to vibrate at a higher level and see the hope and see the possibility. So when it comes to surrendering, you surrender, but the action steps you take are to journal, to make your list of positive aspects, to focus on visualization, to read success stories of other people, to know that miracles and things happen all the time. We don't know what we don't know. Examine your belief systems and decide that the story you're telling yourself, probably over and over again, isn't serving you. Decide to tell a new story, because guess what? The first one's not true anyway. So are you addicted to your beliefs? Are you addicted to telling the same story over and over again? I'm not saying this to you, Jane. This is to everybody. But generally speaking, the balance of surrendering is to do a practice and to do what you can to get into alignment with what you want, to create it, to see it, to feel it, to believe it's possible. And if you're reaching too far and you don't believe it's possible, then scale back. Because some of you reach really, really far because you think that money or a house or a relationship is going to make you happy. So you go to that place, but what you just keep activating is the lack of having it. You're actually not helping yourself at all because you don't really believe it. The reason I've been successful is because I really believed it. I mean, we're going to talk about money here in the next couple of months, because the one other aspect that I can't wait to share with you is how how some of my behaviors scare the crap out of people in terms of my financial future. They go, oh my God, what is she doing? Why isn't she doing this? And they would never ever think about acting the way that I act or believe. But I honestly know exactly and believe exactly in my path, and it is unfolding exactly how I envisioned it. I knew that it would, and not that I knew that it would, I trusted that it would. I didn't know when, I didn't know how, but it is. But it's because I actually believe what I freaking say. I don't secretly have fear that I'm denying. I actually believe all the things that I feel and think and say. It's other people around me who challenge it because they have fear, because they don't believe what I think and feel and say. Okay, so I'm being called by my kitten. She is now awake and taking over my desk. So Jane, I hope this was helpful to you and helpful to the rest of you. And as a reminder, we are doing a free 30-day manifestation challenge starting in March. You have to be registered by February 25th to get involved, so you can get into the Facebook group and watch some of the earlier videos to answer some of the questions I know you're going to come in with. If you're interested in joining us for the March 30-day manifestation challenge, please sign up. Go to jjflizanes.com/30day. That's 30day. Again, jjflizanes.com/30day. The next one won't be till September, and I'm wishing you all a wonderful rest of your week and weekend, and I'll see you back here soon.